What is up, everybody? Dan the Fireman here, and we're going to be talking about 12 tips for first-time motorcycle riders. Now, these are my 12 tips, and it's definitely not the end-all be-all, so please write in the comments for any tips, anything that you've learned on your own or from an uncle or family member or friend that have told you, hey, try this out, because I would love to hear that so other people can also hear it. And then, who knows, I might be able to do another video, and then I'll put your name next to it and give you a cool shout-out, and it's going to be helping everybody. So let's jump into this first one. Okay, so number one, look where you want to go. Now I'm going to have some footage playing over my face because I don't know if you guys want to see me this whole time, but looking where you want to go is one of the biggest things. And this is something that I was taught as a very little kid when I was learning how to snowboard. I had an instructor to tell me, hey, look where you want to go because that's where you're going. Okay, so if wherever your eyeballs are pointing and your face is pointing, pretty much that's where you're going. And he actually told me why he believed that, and it really does ring true when it comes to motorcycle riding. If you turn your head and point your eyes where you want to go, your shoulders tend to start to rotate that way. If your shoulders start to rotate that way, it starts to translate into your hips, and your hips start to rotate that way, and then your legs start to rotate that way. So on a motorcycle, if you're looking to the right, for instance, your arms and shoulders will start to turn to the right, which actually start doing more direct steering or even counter steering, and will actually turn the bike a little bit. So look where you want to go, and then look even further, especially in slow speed stuff, okay? So number two, ride more defensively than you drive. Now this is very important. Driving a car versus riding a motorcycle is really different, to be quite honest. You want to ride more defensively than you would be driving in a car, because in a car you have all this protection, you have all these different things, you have the roll cage, you have airbags, seat belts. We really don't have that. We have maybe helmet, jacket, gloves, boots, and pants, but I know a lot of people don't ride with full gear, so even at the end of the day, it's not even compared closely to the amount of protection that we have in a car. So you have to ride more defensively. There are times where you need to ride a little aggressive, and that's usually when it comes to evading something in an emergency, or getting yourself out of a sticky situation, or preventing something that would cause a crash. So definitely ride more defensively than you drive. Cover those brakes before intersections, slow down before those really sharp curves. It's as simple as that, guys. So now we're going to jump into number three, and I'm going to talk about this in a 3 and a 3.5 because it kind of moves back and forth together. Okay, so don't forget to put your side stand down. Here's the thing: is a lot of riders, after a nice long ride, they're not thinking very well because they just had a great time, or maybe they're mentally exhausted and they shut the bike off, go to step off the bike, no side stand down, boom, drop the bike. I think a lot of us have done that. I've done it maybe 2 or 3 times in my whole riding career, and I know a lot of new riders do that all the time. So 3.5 on this one is make sure you put your side stand up. So one of the biggest things here is new riders will do their T-clocks. They're going through their fine C, and they turn it on. They're like, why isn't my engine starting? Well, typically the side stand is still down, and it does have some form of a kill switch on it. So some bikes won't start if you have the side stand down. So make sure you put that side stand up when you want to take off, and put it down before you get off the bike. So number 4 is to adjust your mirrors before you actually take off. Okay, that is pretty big. When you're out riding, you're trying to do all these different things. You're situationally aware about all these potholes, pedestrians, cornering, and all intersections coming up. You definitely don't want to be looking at your mirror while riding and try to find your 360 space cushion, and your mirror is pointing right at your chest. And then now you're going to have to adjust it while riding. That's not something you definitely want to do. So make sure you check your mirrors before you take off. So sit on your bike and sit straight, or sit however you're going to be riding, and adjust those mirrors so that you can see around you. Now, it doesn't mean you can't do your head checks, so those are really good, okay? You don't want to be trying to ride with one hand and move stuff, especially as a new rider when you're still adjusting to the balance of the bike and the power of the bike, okay? So number 5 is to do a quick pre-ride inspection. And I talked about T-clocks, and I talked about doing this full in-depth pre-ride inspection, but I want to talk to you about doing a quick one. Okay, so in the fire service, what we had were daily checks, weekly checks, monthly checks, even 6-month and 1-year checks of all our equipment, of all our stuff. Of everything. And the daily checks were mainly that quick pre-ride check. And we still checked everything, but it was very quick. So I talked about T-clocks quite a bit, and T-clocks stand for tires and wheels, controls, lights and electronics, oil and other fluids, the chassis, and then the stands. We already talked about the side stand and how important that is. So what I like to do is when I'm walking up to my bike, it's almost like I'm back in the EMS service and fire service where I'm doing a scene size up, where I'm doing a quick visual inspection of everything. So while I'm walking up, I'm looking underneath the bike and I'm seeing if there's any fluids. I'm also seeing how the tires are sitting. Are they squished? Are they super inflated? Typically, they're usually underinflated for motorcycle riders. So make sure you check your PSI, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But you want to check everything. So make sure the throttle snaps back when you pull it all the way down. Make sure your brake lever has good resistance. Same thing with your brake pedal. You want to pull in the clutch, see if it has a little bit of resistance, not too much, because you don't want it to be free flowing like it has a snapped cable. And then your shifter and a bunch of other things. You want to make sure your speedo and dash are in good order. No exposed wires, none of that stuff. Do a quick inspection of the outer side of your tires for any type of damage, dry rot, anything like that. If your tread is getting a little low, maybe it's time to replace those tires, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later because I got a lot of tips for you guys. But this is very, very important to just do a quick pre-ride inspection, and then maybe do a weekly or a monthly inspection of your chains, and then an actual visual, full-on visual of your tires and all the other stuff. But a quick pre-ride inspection will solve a lot of your problems. Number 6, make sure you know your fuel capacity. This is one of those things where even I've had some problems where I've almost ran out of fuel before I can get to a gas station. Now, this is something that you want to do before you start riding and understand what you can do, because fuel capacity, especially the electronic ones, they can be a little jumpy because how our bikes are moving back and forth. They're not stagnant. There's this whole thing when it comes to electronic fuel capacity and how many range and miles you have. So what I like to do is actually set a trip meter from the moment I fill up my gas tank to the moment I have to fill it up again because I feel like it's getting low. And then I have an understanding of, okay, that's my range. That's what I can do. So that's very important. So if you're going to go somewhere long distance and it's like, well, okay, it's about a 300-mile trip that I'm going to be doing, and I know my gas tank can maybe get 80 to 100 miles, so you're going to have to fill up at some point. So during that trip or during your pre-ride, you're going to check and make sure that there's gas stations within 100 miles of every single thing. And if you have to, stop at 50 miles, fill up, and then another one in 80 miles, whatever it is you have to do. So make sure you know your fuel capacity. You definitely don't want to be stranded because it's very hard to carry a gas can, especially a big one, on your bike. They do make those little canisters for emergencies. You might want to check into that if you have a small capacity gas tank, and that might be something you want to look into. So let's jump into number 7, and this is going to be an obvious one, but it's not obvious for first-time riders, and it's not obvious for those that don't ride or understand motorcycles, is that motorcycle parts can burn you. Okay, it's not just the exhaust where it's pretty obvious or the engine, but start thinking about all the metal parts that get close to the engine or come in contact with some form of friction. Now, what's one of the biggest things that come in contact with friction on your motorcycle? Your brake pads and your brake rotors. So your rotors can get very, very hot. So be careful when you're helping somebody move their bike by grabbing the tire and lifting up the back end or the front end to kind of shuffle or move it around. You definitely don't want to touch that rotor. It's going to be extremely hot. And I bring this up because I know a lot of first-time riders are super excited to show their friends, their family, their kids, whoever, hey, look at my cool bike. I just showed up. I rode there. Look at my cool bike. And then there's a kid that comes up and like, this is really cool. And they touch the exhaust. They touch the engine. They touch the rotor. They touch this. And now they have first easily, but definitely second degree. And, quite possibly you could have third degree burns, especially if they get a full handful. And any burns to the hands, feet, circumferential, face, genitalia, any of that stuff is actually a critical burn. So be very careful when it comes to that. You definitely don't want to be hurting your family members with a simple mistake like that, okay? Number 8, get some gear. First-time riders, they go out and they're like, okay, I'm going to buy a bike. Awesome. And then that's it. They maybe get a helmet, maybe get gloves, but they typically don't get a jacket, pants, and boots along with it. So make sure you get some gear. I do recommend those 5 pieces of gear. Remember, get all the gear all the time. So very, very important. And honestly, I should put this at number 1. So number 9, dress in layers, whether it's hot weather riding or cold weather riding. A good base layer will keep you cool or it will keep you warm. So make sure you get one of those moisture wicking ones for the summertime, because you definitely don't want to get all soggy and nasty. You want it to be able to evaporate efficiently and allow the cooling measures of your body to take action. And then for cold weather, you definitely want to dress in layers. You want to have a nice warm base layer. I actually really like the Under Armour cold gear. That's what I use, but there are motorcycle specific types of gear out there for that. And then you start adding more and more and more. And then when you get your gear, remember there's summer gear, 3-season gear, winter gear, heated gear, ventilated gear, all these different things out there. So if you want me to go over some of those things, stay tuned, hit that subscribe button, because I'm going over a beginner gear list. I have helmets that are under $200 right now. I have gloves under $55 right now, and I'm going to go over a bunch of gear because I think that's very important that you get this stuff. All right, so let's jump into number 10. You need to pick boots or shoes with good traction. Now, a lot of people are thinking, and I'm thinking too, you know, boots. Okay, what should I get? Make sure it has good protection for my ankles, my shins, all these different things. I don't want to crush my foot. I want to make sure I have a mid-shank sole so that when I put my feet on the pegs, it doesn't collapse and then gives me pain in my arch or any of these different things. That's all great and all, but make sure we actually have good traction. And here's the thing for first-time riders is that when they put their foot down, a lot of them don't understand everything when it comes to intersections and where people stop. Well, guess what? There's plenty of oil, plenty of nasty stuff that could be slippery in those intersections where you stop. So you want to have good traction to where it's going to be able to push away some of that nasty stuff and get good mechanical grip on that ground so you don't slide out. Because the one thing you don't want to do, because it's super embarrassing, is pull up to an intersection, you come to a stop, you look badass, maybe there's a hot chick or hot guy right next to you, or there's a cool dog that you want to impress on the side of the road, you put your foot down, it slips, now you drop your bike, and you've damaged your bike, you damaged your ego, and it just sucks. So make sure you get some good boots with good traction, and on top of that, make sure it's good protection too. This is one that gets a lot of people out here, okay? Know your local motorcycle laws. That is really big. When you start to jump into motorcycling from driving, there's different things that you need to understand. For those that just go out and drive a car and don't really think about it, it pretty much complies to state law, okay? So automobile companies, make sure you have brake lights, turn signals, headlights, all these different things, and you pretty much comply with that law. When it comes to motorcycling, you might have to change a few things. You need to make sure, especially if you're in California, that you have all these emissions things, all these different crazy things. But I'm going to go ahead and talk about a little bit more in Arizona versus California. California, you need to wear a helmet. It's required. In Arizona, it's not. That's one big thing. So if you travel back and forth between state lines, you need to understand that. But in Arizona, there's different laws for neon underglow. There's different laws for how many headlights, brake lights, all these different things that you need. At the end of the day, all you need to wear in Arizona is a pair of safety glasses, and you can be completely naked while riding your motorcycle. Pretty crazy, because in Arizona, all you need is iPro. And if you're under 18, you need to have a helmet. That's it, pretty much. So that is very important to understand, and that's not even talking about what you need on your motorcycle. So understanding your local laws, because you don't want to be riding out, having a good time, and you're trying to save money up for some good gear or quality gear. Maybe you're saving up for a class, and then you get pulled over for a fix-it ticket, or you get pulled over and get a real ticket, and now you're paying $200 to $400, which could have been used towards this motorcycle class that you've been wanting to take, or for that new helmet that you've been saving up for. So you really don't want to be doing that. Understand your local laws. Don't drink and drive also. So anyways, we talked about the T-clocks and the pre-ride inspection and all these different things, but here's the thing, is double check your motorcycle tire pressure. That's important, everybody. Number 12 is to check your tire pressure. And it's not always about, well, I got to check the tire pressure because, it's going to be more safe. Now, that's the biggest thing. Okay, if it's underinflated, you're going to have some traction issues. You're going to have some issues when it comes to cornering. You don't want to, break off the beads and the seal of your tires to your rims. Definitely don't want to do that. But the main thing here for new riders, because I know you guys are safety conscious already, right? But you're also financially conscious. You want to make sure that you're getting the best bang for your buck. And if you have underinflated tires, guess what? Your tire life is going to die. Your tires are going to wear out quick, and then you're not going to get the best traction either. I mean, that's the safety part, is you're not going to get the best traction. If it's underinflated when you're in that turn, it's going to be very bad traction. When you're going straight, it's going to be great traction, okay? And a lot of people underinflate their tires for wheelies because guess what? You're going to have the best traction for that. But make sure it's properly inflated, and I talk about this a few times when it comes to actual tires, and I have it in my tire guide in my ebook, which is only $5. Link will be in the description, but that's not what I'm talking about here. Is that when you have tires, you want to make sure you're inflating it to the motorcycle specifications, not the tire specifications. So right next to your VIN on your motorcycle, it should say what your front tires pressure should be and what your rear tires should be. That is what you need to go by. Don't go by that little dash on the side of your motorcycle tire. That is not what you want to go off of. You want to go off of what the motorcycle itself says. And then you also want to look into your tires also for, when it was born. I talk about all that in the ebook, but guys, this is what I wanted to talk to you guys about. I wanted to talk about 12 tips for first-time motorcycle riders because I feel like this is super important. And remember, write in the comments on tips that you have learned from friends, family, or yourself through the years of riding. And I would love to make another video, but the commenter edition. I would love to do that. I would definitely love to do that. And I'll give you a nice shout out next to each tip. I would love to do it. So please write in the comments. With that said, I hope you ride safe, be safe, and I'll be seeing you around.